Welcome to the second episode of the Tempo Living podcast, Tempo Talks, where we talk about home building, business, and everything in between. Today's guest is approaching 40 years experience in the construction industry across commercial, residential, and land development. He's worked with his four brothers in the home building space, and more recently, is a director at Tempo Living. Michael Gremmo, welcome to the show.
It's a great intro, isn't it? 40 years. I didn't think I was that old, Jeremy.
Let's kick things off. You're one of four brothers. You have a sister as well, but the four of you entered the construction industry, I think, to clear the air. Who is the most talented out of the four of you, and why?
Best looking and most talented, or that's a usual family joke that we start off with. So whoever's in first gets that. But I am the oldest brother, and yes, all the four boys altogether, three brothers. Started off in the building industry, doing their apprenticeship, and through TAFE, except for Richard that went to university.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the differences in your experience in the home building sector, customization, custom home builds, and more recently, your interactions in the volume home project building space.
Yeah, started off my apprenticeship with W. McNamara in Parramatta. So that was a lot of commercial and concrete type constructions, big volume constructions, which was a great experience. Went into the office there after dislocating my shoulder playing that wonderful game of rugby league. And from there, went out ourselves subcontracting, building large homes, and Gremmo Homes since then has sort of taken that custom home space, sort of $1.5 million contracts to up to about $10 million. And obviously with Tempo Living, we've changed that with our project home, but still bringing the influences of style and design into that project home world as well.
So from a customer's perspective, what advice would you give them when they're weighing up their options around custom and what you see is what you get from a project home builder?
Two totally different builds, and obviously the monetary value. So it depends where you sit with that. If you're going out and doing your research, though, go out and do a research on the builder and the background behind the builder, obviously, and how long they've been around and what they can and can't do.
Touching on that, you mentioned, I guess, reputation is one thing, but what other avenues or options do customers have in terms of doing their research?
Through the building industry, through the HIA and MBA, different associate groups like that. Any black marks against the builder's name, which you'll find with Gremmo and Tempo, we haven't. We pride ourselves on a family run and family operated business. And when we talk about family, that's the whole Gremmo and Tempo team, everyone's family, which is a big thing with your working environment. You spend a lot of time there, and we've got a very close-knit team that they all work very well together.
Talking about the custom home building space for the minute, your experience setting up your custom home building company with your brothers, how has that changed over the last 20 years?
Dr. Google and the amount of books that are out there, it's quite incredible. Every Gremmo home that you see, it's a custom home. People bring ideas to us. We've got our own in-house design team and also interior design team. So it's quite incredible to see the different things and products and supplies that go into a house these days. And it keeps evolving. We like being ahead of the market there.
When we talk about customization, in your experience, what's been the most bizarre request that you've had from a customer?
That's probably an Andrew or a David Gremmo question. But I suppose if there's bizarre requests, you've got to work your way into it. And that's where the girls in the office are doing an exceptional job with the custom home building and blending it all together. People bring all these different ideas in, but all the ideas don't work when they're put together. So that's where our team really work well together to get the overall finish of the homes in a great space.
You look at a lot of media now and TV shows like The Block. How has that influenced customers' decision-making throughout their journey what we see on TV. We're builders, so we can see that ants running around collectively, using a metaphor, all over the builds. That's not quite realistic. But how do you approach that discussion point if you've got customers saying, "How come my tiling's not going in and you've only laid the floor yesterday?"
Yeah, I suppose TV's TV, where real life builds aren't built that way. And I suppose that's going back to the customer and making the choice of the right builder is do your homework and do your research to make sure that the builders are doing the right thing. And a big question is the warranty. With Gremmo and Tempo, very big on the warranty side of things, making sure that we address any issues straight away. There will always be, I don't care how good the builder is, there's always issues or problems on site, but it's how the builder addresses it and fixes those problems so that the house is in good running order.
And I guess that also ties in with your customer experience. You've got the custom home space, like you're saying, starts with the 7 figures all the way up to 10 million for the builds. The project home space is a lot more affordable, but we have this conversation all the time. Someone building their home, whether it's their first home or their aspirational home, it's typically the single biggest investment that they'll make to date. Talk to me about the differences between that buyer type and how that buyer profile over the last 10, 15 years has changed. Again,
research and Google, a lot of information out there in the product and different houses that are getting built. In saying that, we've still got the same philosophy, whether it's a $250,000 house or a $10 million home, it's that person's castle. It's their pride and joy and something, whether it's an investment property or their own home, and we treat each individual home in that same manner.
Speaking specifically on the project home space, have we overcomplicated things over the last period, 5 or 10 years? And why should customers who want speed and efficiency, consider that project home space? But then another question too, from an aspiring business owner, the guys out there who are looking to start their own business, what advice can you give them around, what we call the KISS method?
Yes, we use the KISS method, within our business a lot. And yes, you use that word that I use a lot. We have overcomplicated this building industry. Everyone seems to want to be a custom home builder these days and let the customer choose as many things as you can. Where in the Tempo philosophy, we've changed that. As we say, you can have any choice that you want as long as it's a Tempo choice. There's a lot of choices that we give, but we narrow those choices down to keep people within their budgets, and so we don't go over their budget. So there's just so many different products out there, but we've got the experts in the industry that's actually gone out, researched all the right products, and then we're putting those into the homes.
And for an aspiring builder wanting to set up their own business, what advice do you have for them?
Well, there was 2 questions there. I can only do one at a time, Jeremy, so you should know that. Just do what you're good at. Do what you're good at. We all started off as carpenters, timber carpenters, but it's always a good space if you're going to start off as a builder. Go through your time, don't push it, and don't overcomplicate it, and then don't push the boundaries. If you can only do one home at a time, just do one home and do it well, but then build from there. Don't get out there and try and build 10 homes when you can only do 1 or 5. Just do as many as you can to control it and keep the quality and the workmanship up for the clients.
Our last guest, your business partner, Martin Appap, we touched on having financial acumen and understanding not just how to build, but the numbers in terms of your profit and loss, your work in progress, reading a balance sheet. Talk to me a bit about that and where you got your experience from to build up to where you are today.
Yeah, well, Martin's got a lot of experience in the project home world. I've known Martin for a number of years. Always been great mates with him through the industry, as we are with a lot of the builders in the industry. We all know each other. And going back to where I learned that was back in the McNamara days when I was in my early 20s, going into the office and learning how to estimate, learning how to deal with subcontractors, pricing, program, dealing with subcontractors on site. all of that experience was invaluable as you get further on in your business. And that's what you've got to learn to do is get back away from the tools and concentrate on the business rather than be in the business. And, all those things, cash flow, taking control of your money, making sure the money's coming in, paying your subcontractors on time. That's something that we've always done since we've started. And we've still got subcontractors working with us that started off with us many years ago.
Speaking about subcontractors, how important is it to have the strongest team, both in the office, but then again from a subcontractor point of view? They're the guys that are on the ground delivering the homes in their unique aspect, whether it's plasterers, plumbers, electricians. As you mentioned, even from a tempo perspective, we've kept that core group of trades over the last 7 years. How important is that in terms of success moving forward?
Oh, it's huge. Your subcontractors, as you point out, they're the guys actually out on the field building. And we'll go back one step. Your site managers looking after the subcontractors. That's huge. Having those guys and making sure they know what they're doing, giving them free rein to actually make their mistakes, but to actually go out there and look after the contractors. And that's key, that those guys have actually got a great relationship that makes the dream come true. We mentioned family before. All of our subcontractors we treat as family too. Those guys have got to go home. We want them to make money. They've got to put bread and food and drink on their tables as well. If they're making money, hopefully we're making money, and we're doing the right thing and getting the job done well.
Shifting back to that project home volume build space now, there's two differences I see around delivering a home in that volume space. You've got medium density, larger scale projects, and then you've got what we call contract customers building individual houses in particular areas. What are the big differences that you've seen in, I guess, what we call track building in that high volume, medium density space, and the individual contract house builds?
We use the same trades, but it's a different mentality. And with the track build, as you say, like our project down at Tamor, 50 odd homes that we built down there, very proud of that development. Paul Caruana, our site manager, great experience, great attitude with all the trades and subcontractors love him, but it's a different type of build. Getting those right, I always say to the site managers, you've actually got to build the job in your head, whether it's a single home or doing 50 homes, and preparing for that. So that the job's ready, the materials are there, everything's coordinated. So it's just doing it quicker, the track builds, when you're building side by side. A lot easier for the contractors. They're not packing up halfway through the day. They're just moving on to that next job. But if you get that piece right, program, time's money. So that job went very well.
With contract building, and also the medium density stuff, we've seen the climate and the requirements change and shift over the last 5 years. The introduction of 7-star BASICs, the NCC changes that have happened, which is the National Construction Code. In your working career, what's been one of the major shifts, and how have you tackled that? One, in explaining it to a customer, but two, implementing it into your standard methodology in construction?
Well, those things that you mentioned there, that's government, and they have overcomplicated it. The houses previously, they haven't fallen down. The government have definitely overcomplicated and brought costs into the industry, especially when we didn't need it over COVID. We worked hard with the HIA to try and either remove those costs or delay those costs. So it definitely, there's a lot of builders out there that want to help and get the industry up to a better standard all the time. But if they could do that, that would be wonderful.
And we'll touch on your advocacy work with the HIA, as well as some of the stuff you're doing within the community, but more specifically around how have you gone about explaining these changes to customers where we've seen land prices skyrocket, construction prices skyrocket, and then you've got, I guess we call it the red tape that's come in over the top and really burdened our industry. What advice do you have for builders out there even, or anyone in business where you've got to break the bad news to a customer, but still manage that relationship?
Be open, transparent with everyone, lay the cards on the table and tell it as it is. No good hiding things, and most customers they're okay with that. They'll be very happy that you're open, transparent, and do the right thing by them. Don't um, word of mouth. That's the best client you can have by them either coming back to you on building again, which we have a lot with Tempo and Gremmo, or them recommending us to someone else, which is a big thing rather than someone coming in blind, not knowing us.
You mentioned HIA being a really strong advocate for our industry and lobbying both political parties and really trying to just do better for their members. Talk to me a bit about how you got involved in the HIA, apart from obviously being a member within your own organisations. But how did you get involved in that advocacy piece?
It was a few years back now. We went to a meeting with iCare, with homeowners warranty, and I spoke up about a few things that were happening in the industry. And I wasn't very happy with. And then Dave Bear at the time, who was in charge of the HIA, he asked me to come on board, and he's since hung up the boots. And Brad Armitage just taken over, which both those guys are doing a wonderful job. Speaking to ministers and different people within the industry, and getting the views off builders and taking those things on board and going out to the industry. And then we're all there, as I said before, we're there trying to improve the industry as a whole.
With your involvement, on a personal note, what's been, working with the HIA, what's been one of your greatest achievements, or what do you think the HIA, what has been one of their best achievements?
I think just working with all of the builders that are on the HIA, Housing Industry Association Regional Executive Committee, just putting our heads together and coming up with great outcomes, better outcomes, advocating, as I say, to the ministers and different people within government to make the industry a better place. Red tape we've talked about before. There's way too much red tape. I think Kerry Packer once said for each law they bring in, they should repeal 2 more, which would be a great thing if we could do that within the building industry, because there's just that much regulation, especially getting development applications through council. We've overcomplicated that way too much. And as I keep saying, we put a development application into council and we know what we can and what we are allowed to do. And it can take 6 weeks up to 6 months, a year, some jobs to get them out of council. And what you actually get approved is very similar to what you put in. So CDC is a wonderful thing. That needs to be, the laws need to be relaxed on that to allow more jobs to go through the CDC process. Because as I say, these easier jobs with building envelope plans, that's a prime example. Council's already assessed the building envelope plan at the subdivision stage. Why can't that then be taken over as a CDC rather than going through the council process, and then let council concentrate on the larger projects and the big jobs that need their input to get it right for the community.
Speaking of the complying development code and the development application pathways, the ones at a state level, which is CDC, the others local government, what are the benefits for a customer to consider a CDC pathway versus a development application through council?
I'll just speed. Time's money. The build process is the build process. That's another thing that clients should actually have a look at. Not just the build times of the actual builders, but the actual time that it actually takes from when a deposit's taken, getting the plans drawn up, approved, getting all the information in through the portal for a CDC. We're doing that in 10 weeks, which is industry leading. It's that process, getting that right, and the way we've done it at Tempo has been great. We just need to be able to get more homes that fit within the CDC basket.
And from a DA perspective, what's your opinion on going through council?
Time. Time's money. While those customers aren't in their house, they're paying rent, they're paying interest on their land, they're paying interest on the build to date. People don't realise how much that money is adding up, and we need to focus more on that to get these approval times down.
Well, and CDC being quite a strict process, that it's all black and white. There's no grey. It's a tick the box, which appeals to a lot of buyers who need to get into their home sooner. or don't want to have to wait around, continue paying rent. If they've purchased that block of land, they're paying mortgage repayments on the block. We know in Sydney, those block prices now are quite significant. So it's typically quite a major holding cost. And then when you look at DA, what they call merit assess. So you have to follow council's guidelines, but you can play in the grey to some extent. And you get to that 6-month period, they reject it, and you're back to square one. So I think there's a lot of merit in customers considering the compliant development code application process. Specifically for that, you've got guarantees around assurity, the house will fit, the house will comply. And I guess tying into that too, what's the role of a certifier and how important is it for customers to I guess, be guided by a builder because they've got the relationship. But what do you see as the most important part of a certifier and what role they play?
I think you've summed it all up there, but the certifier's role, it's black and white. There's no grey areas, whereas council it can be. But there's no certainty that you're going to get those grey areas approved through council. I mean, our advice is to customers is to make sure that we comply when we're going in there, just to shorten that process. Time's money. In Sydney, you got $750,000 for a block of land to $1 million for a block of land. It's scary numbers, and that adds up with interest rates the way they are at the moment as well.
Coming back to the HIA and talking about the advocacy that they do, a big part of our working relationship, we all started as apprentice carpenters. How do you see their role playing out in terms of finding more apprentices, encouraging the younger generation to take up a trade? I know a statistic, Newcastle TAFE only a couple of years ago had 2 floor and wall tilers apply for their certificates. Shocking numbers, really, considering how many houses we need to build over the next 5-10 years. But what advice do you have, both through HIA advocacy, but your own personal experience? What advice do you have for the younger generation, the school leavers, where they may not have considered an apprenticeship? Obviously, it can be quite a lucrative career, especially if you're working for yourself. But what would you say to encourage the next crop of Michael Gremmo?
Exactly that. I mean, go out and do your research, see what you wanted to do. I was a young bloke, left school in year 10, went out and became an apprentice carpenter. There's just so many different avenues that you can go down these days in the construction field, being high rises or working with the big boys in there, the tier 1 builders or tier 2 and tier 3, going down the housing industry route. Yes, and then from there, going into offices, estimating, drafting. Just there's so many different avenues that you can, even if you want to change in your career later on. But it's a wonderful industry. I started there when I was 16, as I said, and haven't regretted one day of it. I love it. Going out to work and creating something that you like and making people happy. It's a wonderful industry to be in, and there's great people in the industry. A lot of my great mates I've come through contractors and we're mates today.
I think as well, without getting too fluffy, because I know you're an emotional man at times, but what I love about the industry is the fact that we're building houses for people, putting roofs over their heads, and it's quite an emotional experience for them. Like I said before, it's typically their single biggest investment. So it's pretty special to be contributing to that. It's the testimonials that we receive, even if it's an investment. It's their second home or their third home, or they're taking the next step to financial security. Being a major part of that, and seeing the outcome once we hand those keys over is pretty special. Coming back to apprenticeships or just the industry as a whole, speaking with John Paul Brancato, our plasterer, it's amazing. I've got a 12-week-old baby, young George, and he's getting a job when he's 14 and 9 months, and he's going to learn how to put plasterboard on the wall, but specifically cornice. Those guys are clearing $600 a day. They need a saw, a miter box, 2 bags of cornice cement, a bucket and a mixer, and they can cornice an entire home once you get up to speed and make some good money. And typically those overheads, like I mentioned, there's 5 things and it's all relatively manual. So there's big opportunity out there. I think I'll be hitting him up for a loan when he's 16 because he'll have the cash.
Well, George would be a lot more talented than you, that's for sure. Yeah, as I say, there's just so many different avenues you can go down. Like Chippy, you can be a fix-out carpenter, a frame carpenter, an eave carpenter. I was lucky enough when I did come out of working in the construction with McNamara's that we actually did the lot, built the roofs ourselves as well. So had a lot of experience, which has helped me in the design of the homes and coming up and speaking to our subcontractors and suppliers these days, getting their input of how they would build a home and the different methods or what we can do to make it easier for them. And it helps us as the builder work with them to come up with these different methodologies to try and make their jobs easier as well.
And from a perspective where you've got that on-site experience, how important do you think that is when you do take the step into the office?
Huge. That dealing with people on site, setting it out, doing the hard yards yourself, rather than just starting off in the office. You're doing your apprenticeship. You know how to build. You're watching all the other trades there, so you know what they're doing. It's huge. So that apprenticeship piece, whatever you're going to be, electrician, plumbers, whatever it is, roof tiler, metal roofer. There's just so many trades to go in. You mentioned plasterboard before. There's just so many great trades out there.
What was the hardest thing that you had to do as an apprentice?
Yeah, probably labour. But I was young and fit and playing footy back in the day, so
got a bit of mobility issues now with your shoulders, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's football. That's not work. But probably because I couldn't tackle properly. But yeah, no, it's put in a hard day's work, but then you're coming back, especially if you're playing sport. It's keeping you fit, keeping you healthy as well. It was fantastic. Loved every minute of it.
Talking about these changes, BASICs, the NCC, for a customer, what does that look like for them? What are they actually getting now that all these changes have been made, and what's not included, what's included? How do they sift through all the information that's out there to fully understand what they're actually getting?
Well, they don't really, because the builder does it for themselves. So as a builder, it's our responsibility to make sure that we comply with all that regulation that we have. As I said, it's cost a lot of money. We all want to be environmentally friendly and green, but some of the costs and cost prohibitive measures that have been put in place, I don't think you're getting the best outcome for what we were trying to do, to tell you the truth. There's other ways that could have been done, but we adapt as a building industry, and whatever needs to be done, we'll do it. Sometimes the government needs to give the building industry more time to make those changes. One of the big changes with 7-star, a lot of the windows now are double glazed. So, double glazing, I've got that in my place. That's wonderful for heating and cooling a house. So that is great. It is costly though too.
Speaking about the dynamics around choice making, the number of builders that are out there, just as a general comment, what advice would you give customers when they're initially starting out on that home building journey to find a builder, to find that right partnership, I guess, with the builder?
Do your research, get out there and ask questions, have a look at their display homes, but more importantly, go and have a look at their actual builds, what's actually happening on site, how clean are the sites, are they moving quickly, is it standing still, stationary too long? Have a look at has the builder gone too far and committed to too many jobs, and they haven't got enough trades in their group to keep up with it. But yeah, that's probably the best thing. Get out to the subdivisions and actually have a look. Have a look what's going on. Don't go on the sites. Obviously, it's unsafe, but you can see the homes from the road.
And from a contracts perspective, what are some of the things that they should be looking out for too? I guess what we call the fine print or the asterisks.
Yeah, make sure it's plain English, simple contract. Get a solicitor involved if you're not. With our contracts, we use the HIA contract or a plain simple contract that is easy to understand. We don't overcomplicate things, that's for sure. But the contract, once it's signed, at the end of the day, if the client's got to pull that out or the builder's got to pull that out, there's an issue. Things should be just worked out face to face. There's always going to be issues, but it's how the builder and the owner deals with it.
And talking about contracts and more so around fixed price, you mentioned that your family has been involved in land development. I guess on a more granular approach, a home buyer is looking at a block of land that has been developed. What are some of the documentation pieces that need to be considered? One, from a builder's perspective, and I guess touching on your experience around that land development piece, but also from a customer's perspective, what documentation should they be asking the builder have they assessed prior to issuing a contract?
Geotechnical work, if you can get it, that is sometimes hard to get out of the land developers. That's something I think should be mandatory for all land developers. They have to get all of their levelling and their compaction tests done whilst they're doing the subdivision. So I believe that should be made public. That helps us as a builder and our engineers actually assess how we get the ground slabs and the piering done on the sites. From our point of view, we do that up front from our initial deposit. As long as the land's registered, we'll go out and get the survey done, the geotechnical work, so we know what the hidden nasties are under the ground that you can't tell, obviously, a reputable developer as well.
I guess part of that too is obtaining any relevant council documents like a 10.7 certificate or contract or land specific, which is the 88B. Maybe for the listeners, just give them a bit of an understanding of what those two documents sort of may prohibit or enable.
Yeah, I suppose they can be complicated. I mean, they're plain English. They can be complicated. If you don't understand it, go through with your conveyancer or your solicitor or your builder too. But there's something that we actually look at in the early stages, so then we can give that truly fixed price contract, which is a great thing for the customer at the end of the day, that they're not going to get a hit up with any extra peering or hidden costs or extra costs that they don't know about. Again, it's being open and transparent with our customers to make sure that we're starting off on the right foot.
Any harsh lessons that you've heard about in the industry, or maybe you've even experienced from a contracts perspective, or not necessarily reading that fine print, whether it's a council document or an 88B, anything that you've seen in your experience where, some things that unfortunately are harsh lesson for you or what you've heard could actually educate the people listening?
If it's too cheap, there's a problem with it. We all know that. When you go out and buy something, you can go out and, all the different stores on Facebook and everywhere else these days. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. So be careful of that. Get a few prices, but mainly do your research. Make sure that you're happy with that builder. You don't want a builder going broke halfway through it if people are being too hard on them or something goes wrong. But that's where builders come unstuck when they are too cheap, and that's no good for anyone. When the builders go broke, it's a bad reputation for the industry and somewhere that we don't want to go.
And where do you see the industry moving over the next 10 years?
Well, hopefully, as we've spoken about before, government and red tape, government will listen to us and speak to us. There's a housing industry crisis at the moment. We need more land out there. You'll see the government at the moment, they're concentrating on high rise and closer to the city. The reason they're going closer to the city is the building cost for high rise buildings is just too high, and it's not affordable out west. We need to get the greenfield subdivisions though sorted out. There's major problems with sewer and infrastructure at the moment. It's an easy fix if the government sat down and did that and spoke to the people in the industry. There's a lot of people in the industry that want to improve it and get it there. But
probably the most important question for today's session: are Parramatta going to win the premiership this year?
No chance.
The honest truth.
1986, and a long-time Parramatta supporter, but after their performance against the Dogs last night, which I was out there, I'll stick with watching the Hills Bulls on the weekend.
Michael, thanks so much for your time today. Very insightful as always, and you've had a pretty illustrious 40-year career so far with working across multiple businesses with your family. And I've enjoyed our time together over the last 7 years, and all the best for the next 40. You might be in one of those retirement villages actually that we've developed.
Mate, if I'm still here, I'll be working, don't you worry.
On our next episode, we'll dive deeper into more industry insights with industry experts. We'll see you then.